faithfully delivering value, interpreting great global books. Hello, this is Sally Book Talk. People know that everything in nature seems orderly, from the movement of celestial bodies to a drop of water falling, all governed by the law of gravity. But the human world is much more complex. Every era and region has different political systems, and it seems there's no clear pattern to follow. However, in the 18th century Enlightenment, a thinker believed we can study human political society just like we study nature. This figure is Montesquieu from France. He wrote his research into the book we're discussing today, a classic masterpiece. In political science, The Spirit of the Laws, Montesquieu was born into French nobility, served as a court president, embraced new ideas, and was an Enlightenment thinker. Like other Enlightenment thinkers, he also believed the root of human suffering lies in a lack of knowledge. Let me give a simple example. Some folks often get toothaches because of a vitamin C deficiency. A doctor with medical knowledge knows the cause and advises eating more oranges to supplement vitamin C so the toothache goes away. Similarly, if we grasp the basic principles of how society works, then conflicts and hardships can be resolved, and people naturally step into a better society. The Spirit of the Laws explains this very principle. The whole book has 6 volumes and 31 chapters, totaling over 600,000 words. To understand this book's content, we should start with its title, The Spirit of the Laws. So what is law? Montesquieu gave a classic definition. Law is the necessary relations arising from the nature of things. For instance, water's form has a necessary relationship with temperature. When it drops to a certain point, water freezes, and when it rises, water turns to gas. All changes in water are bound by this law. Nature's orderliness comes from these necessary relations. Montesquieu believed human society also has its law, most obviously what we commonly call law. So what is the spirit of law? This is a term coined by Montesquieu. The so-called spirit of law refers to external factors that shape law, like political systems or folk customs. Montesquieu wanted to tell people that law, this human-made thing, seems arbitrary, but actually obeys certain rules determined by external factors. This is key knowledge for understanding law. Montesquieu further explains what exactly are the laws like in different places. The most important determining factor is the local political system. Therefore, Montesquieu categorized various political systems into 3 types: republican, monarchical, and despotic. When studying each form of government, he approached it from 2 aspects. First is the nature of the government, which examines who holds the power. So, the second is the principle of the government, which looks at what sustains its normal operation. Let's first examine the nature of these 3 forms of government. If sovereignty is held by a group of people, it's a republic. Within republics, there are subcategories. When the rulers are the majority, it forms a democratic republic. If the rulers are only a small part, it forms an aristocratic republic. The characteristics of an aristocratic republic are, as Montesquieu said, the people are, in some respects, sovereign, in other subjects. Ancient Athens exemplifies a democratic republic. They selected officials by drawing lots. As long as you were a citizen, regardless of background or wealth, you could serve as an official. If a republic's supreme power is held by a small group, that's an aristocratic republic. In contrast, aristocratic republics feature broad inequality but small-scale equality. Positions aren't filled by lot, but by property and family status. For instance, during certain periods of the Roman Republic, the Senate became the actual ruler. In Renaissance Venice typified aristocratic republics. But nobles should maintain equality among themselves, with none above others. When supreme power concentrates in one person, monarchy emerges. The key difference between monarchy and republic lies in the number of rulers. Since state affairs are decided solely by the king, monarchies operate more efficiently than republics. However, a monarch can't act arbitrarily. Ruling still requires reliance on nobles and bureaucrats. Without constraints, monarchy deteriorates into despotism. When one person monopolizes power with no legal constraints, ruling solely by personal whim, that's classic despotism. Despotic monarchs consider themselves supreme, never taking others seriously, either indulging in pleasure or dumping everything on a few close associates. In Montesquieu's writing, this is the worst form of government because all political relations are reduced to master-slave dynamics. After understanding the nature of these three governments, let's examine what powers their operation. First, whether democratic or aristocratic republics, they value virtue in public participation. Legislators must take measures to make people prioritize collective affairs over private interess. An ancient Spartan story illustrates this well. Sparta was an ancient Greek city-state. Legend tells of a Spartan soldier who fled battle to save himself, only to be furiously scolded by his elderly mother. When the son returned to die for Sparta's victory, the mother shed no tears, but celebrated the city-state's triumph. But in monarchies, virtue no longer sustains government. People focus only on private interests, losing public spirit. This system operates on vanity. Subjects must desperately curry the monarch's favor, striving to secure positions at court. In this way, though everyone acts self-interestingly, they objectively benefit the collective. Finally, in despotism, even vanity fails. Fear dominates actions. Only constant whipping sustains despotism. To suppress rebellion and maintain tyranny, harsh laws create terror. Montesquieu cited ancient Japan, where nearly every crime meant death, lying to officials or disobeying the emperor. Despotism violates human nature, the ultimate degeneration of governments. Thus it can't endure, destined to perish from birth. Regarding government classification and their driving forces, Montesquieu stated this knowledge reveals the necessary laws he explored. So why so many government forms? Why do different nations choose different systems? Montesquieu believed a nation's choice depends on its national character. As the saying goes, different lands nurture different people. He diligently collected vast materials, meticulously examining the political influence of climate and geography, seeing how they shape social customs, thereby leading to different political systems in various places. Next, Montesquieu begins to argue the necessary connection between social customs and the choice of government systems. First, starting with climate, Montesquieu says that in cold climates, it's easier to establish republics, while in tropical regions, monarchies are more common. Or why is that? He believes that when temperatures drop, blood vessels contract easily, making people feel tense. Northern peoples are often braver and more active, making such national traits more likely to appear. In hot climates, because blood vessels relax relatively, people lack energy, have slower lifestyles, and aren't good at innovation, so they're easier to manage, even prone to slavery, making monarchy more convenient. Besides climate, soil conditions are also an important factor influencing national character. For example, in mountainous areas with poor soil, people need hard labor to feed themselves, leading to tougher customs and residents less likely to yield. So republics emerge more easily. Whereas in fertile lands, life is peaceful and compliant, prone to complacency, such nations easily produce monarchies. Perhaps some might say, aren't these arguments too simplistic and childish? For people today, the idea that climate and geography determine political customs doesn't hold water. But for people in the 18th century, this already reached the limits of their thinking. And if the spirit of the laws stopped here, the significance of this work would be greatly diminished. Next, Montesquieu shifts gears and elevates the necessary connection between social customs and government systems to an enlightened level. In Montesquieu's view, increasing trade activities are changing Europe, smoothing out the differences brought by original climate, and geography. The new social customs shaped by commercial activities are calling for new political laws. Let's first discuss the characteristics of this new commercial social custom. First, trade stimulates people's desire for property. In nations with thriving trade, people legitimately prioritize pursuing profit. In the past, people might have thought virtues like obedience and piety were more important. This change is unprecedented. Secondly, trade makes people more equal and emphasizes the spirit of contract. Montesquieu observed that in places with developed trade, residents become more calculative, losing the generosity and hospitality admired by the ancients. They no longer serve their compatriots unconditionally, but on the other hand, trade also makes people value fairness and integrity more. One hand pays, the other delivers goods. No shortchanging or forced seizures. Moreover, doing business emphasizes equality between parties, helping us view others equally, become more compassionate, and make society more humane. Next, trade broadens people's horizons, making it easier to get along with others. In societies with underdeveloped commerce, people are isolated, lack external exchanges, often struggle to understand foreign behaviors and customs, always thinking outsiders must be suspicious. In places with active foreign trade, people frequently encounter other customs, dissolve hostility toward foreigners, stop viewing their lifestyle as the only correct one, and ultimately, global trade brings global peace. Through commercial exchanges, people worldwide are intoxicated with wealth. What's edible in the Eastern Hemisphere, people in the Western Hemisphere can also buy. Lifestyles gradually converge, and people no longer harbor hostility toward each other. Nations no longer wage wars over plundering resources, achieving world peace. Today, some of Montesquieu's ideas still seem a bit naive. He didn't foresee commercial disputes sparking wars, but his perception of social custom changes was sharp. Since social customs have changed, next comes political system change. For example, if everyone is equal, a monarchy emphasizing hierarchy won't work. Republicanism prioritizes the collective, which modern people focused on private interests can't accept. Cruel despotic rule can't provide a safe trading environment for merchants, so it's even less acceptable. Thus, Montesquieu proposed a new free government, his most important contribution to modern political philosophy. Literally, a free government means he places political freedom first. So what is freedom? We shouldn't interpret freedom too frivolously, thinking it means doing whatever we want. Montesquieu gave a classic definition. Freedom is a state of living under legal constraints, where people can do what the law permits and cannot force others to do what they shouldn't. For example, once I legally buy a house, I can decorate it, read books inside, and sleep soundly at night with the door closed. But I can't just barge into my neighbor's house. Conversely, even if my door is wide open, my neighbor can't come in uninvited. Otherwise, everyone would be in constant fear and nothing would feel free. And political freedom means that everyone feels safe under the law's protection. Without worrying about others, freedom to protect citizens and ensure their security, a government must do two things. First, achieve separation of powers. Second, establish fair criminal laws. First, let's look at separation of powers. A country has legislative, executive, and judicial powers. Through legislative power, people can make or repeal laws. Through executive power, people can maintain public order, declare war, or negotiate peace. Through judicial power, people can resolve disputes and uphold justice. Montesquieu emphasized that in a free government, independent institutions must handle these three powers. Montesquieu greatly admired England precisely because it achieved separation of powers. In Montesquieu's view, the government led by the king holds executive power, while the House of Commons, representing common people's interests, holds legislative power. And the House of Lords, composed of nobles, exercises judicial power. This minimizes abuse of power Like in a football match, if the referee can arbitrarily change rules, players suffer. The match would lose fairness and couldn't continue. The second requirement of a free government is to establish mild criminal laws. In political society, a major threat people face is legal accusations from others. Imagine if we're walking down the street and get randomly sued or thrown in jail. Could we still feel secure? In Montesquieu's time, the French king often did this, frequently arresting people on secret charges and sending them to the Bastille. To ensure the security of modern people, Montesquieu placed extraordinary emphasis on criminal law. He pointed out that crimes must be defined solely by criminal law, not by the whims of law enforcement. So, what behaviors need criminal law regulation? Montesquieu believed there are four types. First, behaviors harming religion, specifically external actions desecrating religious activities. But one can't prosecute others just for different beliefs. After all, belief or disbelief in God is a private conviction. God doesn't need human laws to achieve justice. The second type is behavior undermining social customs. This mainly refers to licentious sexual behavior causing serious social harm. The third type disrupts social stability, such as disturbing public order or inciting riots. Last is harming other citizens physically, most typically murder. Montesquieu's criminal theory focuses on punishing external actions endangering public safety. He especially stressed that speech, thoughts, and writings shouldn't be punished, as long as they don't cause concrete disturbances or disrupt peace. To summarizing and structured, the free government modern people need ensures safe living, requiring at least first, separation of legislative, executive, and judicial powers, three independent institutions checking each other. Second, in criminal law, uphold the principle of legality. Laws should only regulate actions endangering public interests. People shouldn't be punished for speech or thoughts. However, this vision faced a thorny problem at the time. In 18th century Europe, despite booming global trade, traditional resistance remained strong. For Europeans, Christianity was their greatest historical burden. Commercial civilization emphasized liberating secular desires, while Christianity advocated suppressing human desires, placing happiness in the afterlife. Facing this resistance, radical Enlightenment thinkers advocated discarding religion entirely, calling it false opinions. Thus, they argued modern people should abandon religion and boldly become atheists. So, in Montesquieu's view, what place does religion hold? Montesquieu didn't simply deny religion's value, he believed it still has its place. First, religion's role in spiritual cultivation can't be replaced by law. The best laws create good citizens, while the best religions cultivate morally perfect individuals. For example, the highest punishment law can provide is death, but some heinous criminals aren't afraid to die, making law insufficient. Many religions, from Western Christianity to Japanese folk beliefs, depict hell to deter such fearless criminals. To make them know physical death isn't the end, terrifying punishment awaits afterward. This deterrent power transcends death itself. Beyond moral education, religion sustains nations where law is weak. In war-torn countries where law can't stop conflicts, religion can establish truce periods for peace and recovery. For instance, Arab tribes traditionally observe 4 months annually without conflict. Even minor disturbances during this time are considered sacrilegious. In medieval times, feudal lords waged war freely without legal constraints, but Christianity's Sabbath forced temporary ceasefires. Thus, religion still brought order and stability. So, regarding religion's preservation or abolition, the key isn't doctrinal truth, but whether it's abused. Religions with hell concepts affirm immortal souls, ensuring evil souls suffer, but this belief becomes problematic when abused. In parts of India, widows performed sati, self-immolation, believing they'd reincarnate to serve husbands in next life. This custom abuses soul immortality and should be discarded. In summary, Montesquieu viewed religion through a statesman's lens without wholesale rejection. He believed religion has value when supplementing legal gaps and bringing peace, then it deserves to exist. These are the essential contents of the spirit of the laws. To understand human societal mechanisms, Montesquieu conducted an encyclopedic study summarizing historical governments and revealing their necessary connection to social customs. In this sense, as commercial trade changes local customs and traditions, a new political system is emerging. For this reason, Montesquieu conceived a free government where the state uses separation of powers to protect individual freedom and social justice. It's necessary to establish mild criminal laws to maintain public order, enhance people's sense of security, while keeping the reasonable aspects of religion as a supplement to law. And, that covers the basic content of this book. Finally, I'll briefly discuss the influence of the spirit of the laws on later generations. These influences are divided into two aspects. The first is academic. Montesquieu advocated relatively lenient criminal law positions and the principle of legality, which are fundamental pillars of modern law. The concept of separation of powers has also become the core spirit of modern constitutional theory. Another influence of this book is practical. During the American Revolution, many people were reading the spirit of the laws. For a time, this book became the most read work after the Bible, deeply revered by the founding fathers of America. Later, when the Constitution was promulgated and the nation founded, many institutions of the U.S. government, especially the basic structure of separation of powers, were deeply influenced by Montesquieu's ideas. All right? That concludes our interpretation of the spirit of the laws. The reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.